Welcome back to the Purple Rock Podcast. I'm John, this is my co-host Andy, and we are talking about this week's episode of Survivor, where Aras finally got sent home. King Aras, he's been dethroned, and now he's finally beheaded. Andy, let's not even talk about this, because you know what? Not worth mentioning. It was very sad that Aras left. He was a good player. But there was a whole lot to get to this episode, and I really don't want to discuss anything that happened on Redemption Island. Are you good with that?
Yeah, I was actually thinking, do you want to just go ahead and make your, well, Sierra's a person on the show jokes now, or should we just wait a bit? Or
You know, I have to admit, remember I did mention, I gave her credit. I said Sierra had a mild case of competence that hit her last week. This was more of an outbreak of competence on her part.
yeah, and honestly, we have some fun with that, and I think we're going to have a lot of fun with it tonight. There's basically one story of last night's episode, and that's the epic tale of Sierra and her mom. Lecture Complex, is that it? But everything I've been saying about her has been more, there's a little something there that I could see them developing later. It was never like, oh, she's clearly an awesome player right now. So that you didn't see anything before is not your fault, because it really wasn't there. I was obviously putting everything under a microscope. That said, I feel very vindicated.
Yours was fan fiction that came true.
Again, it's more my read of the edit, I will say myself. It's like, why are they letting this otherwise completely nondescript, non-contributor talk so much? There must be something there.
You're the Canadian Nostradamus.
There was also why the heck did they bring Laura Moret back? I mean, I am a Survivor uber nerd, and I actually had to look her up to figure out who she was. So maybe her daughter was awesome, and then maybe not. But
Turns out she's at the very least moved herself into the mediocre category.
And with a bullet. So yeah, the big moment of the episode was that they finally got to do blood versus water. This was the promise of the season. Oh, family member versus family member. And then very quickly there were not a lot of family members left. And the big question always was, what would you do for $1 million? Would you vote out your mom? Would you vote out your spouse? And it turns out somebody might vote out their mom.
Right, so when this finally happened, you know that Probst and the production team were just fist-pumping in the back, like, yes, finally!
Oh my god, so many orgasms in that room.
It took them 26 days at this point, and they're like, yes, oh, we've been out here a month before this happened.
Yeah, and I'm sure they'd written it off, because clearly it wasn't going to happen with the Buskauskas, no matter how many times they wanted to show us. Those two were a solid 2. It wasn't going to happen with Tina and Tina's daughter. I'm not sure she deserves a name at this point. And then the other people that it could have happened with became a non-factor really quickly. It could have happened with Jervis and his niece. It could have happened with...
Jervis and his niece were not going to stick together. I mean, if it ever came up that they needed to, they were going to split.
Yeah. So, yeah, they got exactly what they wanted, and they got a lot of drama in that episode. How did you feel about the teary mom and daughter heart-to-hearts?
How did I feel? I don't feel, Andy. I'm an emotionless robot.
Yeah.
Why do you think I love Tyson so much?
Yeah, honestly, it's the same. I mean, obviously, it was high drama. People have responded to that in a lot of the write-ups, including, Carrie's on AV Club.
Carrie is a human being with emotion, so she can do this sort of thing. For me, I was just like, oh, yeah, that seems sad. Oh, look, they're talking. That's so sweet. Okay, fast forward, and oh, there's Tyson again.
Yeah, see, I get it. Like, different people watch the show for different reasons, and they're not wrong. But even me, I'm just, listening, okay, so how's Sierra playing this? How's Laura playing this? Is what they're saying actually true? What does this mean for the future? So, I also am not familiar with these human concepts of emotion.
I think our wives probably established pretty early on when we had them as guests that we're not familiar with emotion.
But, I mean, this is kind of the way the game has evolved, that emotional things aren't as important. They're still very important on the island, and I think often commenters kind of get that confused. And they're always thinking about, factory level settings of, this is the move you do then, this is the move that you do then, not kind of thinking about how the emotions in the game work. But still, as we saw in this episode, we've evolved to a spot where, a mom can be voted out by her daughter. Do you remember when, Boston Rob was a snake for, selling out his friends for a stack of greenbacks?
I do. Well, he didn't just sell them out for a stack of greenbacks. He sold them out for a future wife, too. And we didn't know that at the time, but
meanwhile, yeah, in this episode, obviously, we see Sierra vote out Laura, spoiler alert, but, we also see the fallout of Jervis voting out Aris, who by all indications were just as good as friends off screen as, I guess Lex and Boston Rob were. So the game has come a long way, and thank God.
It is funny that if you go back and look at early seasons of the show, it's dramatically different, and it's much improved now, I gotta say.
Alliances used to be evil. But yeah, so in that heart-to-heart that neither of us felt a twinge of emotion for, there were still some interesting things being said that I think people have been batting about, and maybe we will as well. So Sierra's basic point to her mom was, you have no chance to get to the final three, and if you are out of the way, I will get there.
Which, really harsh, but probably true.
I'd say 100% true. Laura has already been voted out of this game.
Yeah, and she was almost voted out before she even got to play. So odds are stacked against her.
Yeah, like if Candace wasn't cast at the last second, I think Laura would have been voted out day one.
Right. And I think Sierra, while she may not have been in the tightest of alliances or at the head of any alliances, she's at least been hanging around. She hasn't really been targeted. There's been threats where she might have been. There was one exception, but they ended up taking out Brad at that point. So she's maintained her alliances at least. She's stuck with it.
Yeah, no, people she was with had multiple opportunities to get rid of her, and in fact probably should have, but did not. So that speaks well of her as a social player, even if you don't, want to give her full marks because it seemed like there was some other things going on. I think her social game's enough that people would entertain those other, ideas. It's like, you know what, I kind of like Sierra, let's keep her around and let's, get rid of John. Or Caleb's sitting there at tribal council thinking about it, and it's like, am I really going to vote out Sierra, whom I like, in favor of Brad, who I don't? Meanwhile, Laura Moret almost gets voted out day one, and then the very next time that she is possible to go out was unanimously booted.
Right. So at this point, you'd have to say that Sierra at least has a better shot than her mom. I would say that there's no chance her mom could win.
No.
And I don't know that Laura sees it that way. But I think Sierra did a decent enough job of painting her the picture. I don't think she spelled it out too harshly like we might have, but, she's not our mom.
Yeah, so the flip side of this, though, is her mom comes back at her and says, so you have a chance to be in the final three, but do you have a better chance to win?
It was almost like Laura said, John, what do you think I should say right here? And I said, tell her this.
So, John, what do you think about what she said there?
I think she does have a shot at the final three. And her chance to win is very slim. I won't say it's 0 anymore, but I will say it's highly dependent on who she can get in the final three with her. And I don't think she's going to be the one pulling the strings into that final three.
Absolutely, I don't think she'll be the one pulling the strings. She's not going to play a game that would have let her pull major strings. I think she could probably pull one or two. But to be frank, being in control of this game is an option that's never available to a player like Sierra. It's all fun and games for us to sit there. It's like, I want to see people who take charge. But the dynamics of this show have proven time and time again that people don't seem to really get in line and listen to the 90-pound woman tell them what to do.
Counterpoint, Cochran.
Cochran wasn't leading from the front.
That's true, and neither would Sierra be in this case if she were trying to lead.
Exactly. Now, and so if Sierra was going to pull any strings, it would have to be in a Cochran-like fashion. It would have to be in a way that the players think that it's their idea, and they just fall in line. And Andrea came to Cochran with the idea to vote out Brenda. And then Cochran's like, yeah, actually, maybe we'll just vote out you, and then let Brenda suggest that. So that's kind of basically the only way she could aggressively take control, and who knows, it could happen. I think after tonight, there is a possibility that, I can envision a way that she could do something like that. She could work things socially, and that she could win in a final situation. I don't think there was any way that Laura Moret could win, because people just don't seem to respond to her. So even if she could come back from Redemption Island, even if she could win every immunity, there's no collection of three people that I think her mom wins against. So I think Sierra was absolutely right in that scenario. Whether she can win at all, I'd say the odds-on favorite. I'm not crazy. It's still Tyson. But I'm willing to put Sierra at number 2 right now. Am I crazy?
Yes.
All right.
I would put Jervis as the number 2 still.
Mm-hmm.
Sierra's probably slipping into that third or fourth slot. Kind of depends on, because I still can see a scenario where it's Tyson, Jervis, and Monica at the end. And if that's the case, then Sierra's just left out of getting into that final three.
Yeah, I mean, for Tyson, that's what he should be trying to get, at least until last night. He may have been bouncing the idea of whether it should be Monica or whether it should be Sierra. But I think there's also a very real possibility that Tyson isn't in that final three. Let's say it is Tyson, Jervis, and Sierra, because I think most people think that Sierra could never win that. And there might be a few constellations now that, yeah, okay, she could beat Katie and Monica. Or she could beat, her mom and Caleb.
I think she could beat Caleb, yeah.
I think she can beat Tyson and Jervis in a final jury, and this is how. I'm not just crazy, rah-rah, I want to be right about
I wonder if this is the exact theory that I have on this topic, but go ahead.
Quite likely. So I think what's important when you're looking at Survivor and how things can be done and how wins can be done is you have to take the consideration of what's going on into consideration. You can't just think in a vacuum that, Tyson is clearly the superior player, and a jury would notice that. Because we have ample evidence that suggests that that's not the way juries operate. So let's look at a jury. It would be an 8-person jury that Tyson and Jervis aren't on. Laura Moret's going to be on that jury. Who's she voting for?
She's a given for Sierra, so you get one vote.
All right, now let's talk about a few possibles. Do you think it's possible that Tina would vote for Sierra? She was very vocal in the fact that Tyson lost a bunch of votes, but I'm guessing at least hers.
I was going to say that she was very vocal when she got voted out. But there's going to be a lot of distance between that moment and when she goes to actually vote. Aris will be there talking to her and saying, calm down, old lady, it's just a game.
Oh, no, there's certainly, I'm not saying Tina's a lock, but do you think Tina might vote for Sierra?
There is an outside possibility that she votes for Sierra, yes.
All right, that's 2 potential votes. And here's another thing. Sierra will have a heck of a story to tell in front of a jury. She gets to tell her personal story about being a teenage mom, fighting up through this, coming into her own as an adult, and of course her mom is going to be sharing this story often. And, people ask, what big moves were you willing to make? She's like, I was willing to sacrifice my mom, which, because her mom won't be super pissed about it, I think people will respect as opposed to, viewing her as a snake.
And as I said to you, Tyson was willing to sacrifice her mom too.
That's right, but that's not the equivalent. It would be Tyson being willing to sacrifice Rachel.
I think he would have done that as well, though.
It's possible, but... So that's 2. Who do you think Katie might vote for?
I don't think Katie ends up voting for Sierra because I think that to get to a final 3, Sierra is going to have to backstab Katie in some way.
Well,
and I think
could it be a backstab at this point? Like, they are not aligned. Katie actually drew the first blood and dissolution of their partnership. Katie voted for Sierra the night that Aris went home.
But if we're now going by what we've seen in this episode and in the previews and saying that Sierra and Katie are now hooked back up because Katie's following the whole anyone but me strategy, then at some point, Katie thinks that she's aligned with Sierra and Sierra has to betray her.
So you think Katie votes for Tyson and Jervis, who is a strong possibility she's never actually shared words with?
Oh, she's talked to them. Come on. They had a pregame alliance with Jervis.
Nah, it doesn't really seem like that was true.
Sure they did.
Actually, it sounds like the pregame alliance was obviously Jervis and Aris. They seem to be almost besties.
It was Tina and Aris, and then Aris and Jervis. So I think it was sort of the friend of a friend alliance there.
Yeah. I'm not confident that Katie has any relationship with Tyson or Jervis. Now, if you want to say Katie might be more likely to vote for Jervis, I'll entertain that. But I think Katie voting for Sierra is a high possibility, especially because Katie casting a vote for Sierra is like Katie casting a vote for herself. She'll see the game that she wanted to play be successful. So she won't be sitting there saying, oh, well, that's a terrible way to win. That's a terrible way to play. Because that was like the only way she was going to be able to win.
So what you're saying is mediocrity recognize mediocrity.
Yep. It's kind of like how everybody thinks that a Redemption Island person could never win because, a jury would never respect that, forgetting that everyone on that jury was in Redemption Island. So that's 3 out of 8 that are within play, even against Tyson and Jervis. We just need to get to 4 here.
And that was what I was going to say, is that's your best argument then, that Jervis and Tyson essentially split the vote because they're too similar as players.
So let's get to Sierra's 4th vote, and that's Monica. Again, could be very easily won over by the emotion of a single mom, and then no longer single, a teen mom, we'll say, getting to the end. But also, if Sierra's sitting in that final 3 and Monica isn't, that's because Tyson and Jervis betrayed Monica.
Yeah, I don't know how bitter she's going to be. I mean, you saw how her husband was on his exit. He was kind of like, well, F it.
Yeah, I also saw how well Monica took it when Tina told her that she was going to be 5th place. There was no sense of betrayal there that she just ran over to another side and immediately voted out ours.
Well, as much as Monica wants to win, she doesn't necessarily have to win, and I don't think she's going to get too bent out of shape. I mean, she's already lost the game before. It's not like it's the end of the world for her. Life's still going to go on. It's still good to be a Culpepper.
Yeah, I don't see there's any way that Monica votes for Tyson or Jervis if they are the ones that voted her out.
I disagree on that.
And also, again, I don't think Monica would disrespect Sierra the way that other people would. Because Sierra getting there would be the same way Monica was planning on getting there. And it's a way of voting for yourself.
You underestimate Monica's bitterness.
No, you're the one underestimating her bitterness.
Well, see, I'm thinking she's going to be bitter that Sierra stole her under the radar spot, more than she's going to be bitter at Tyson and Jervis.
So Denise was able to win this game basically by arguing that she struggled to get there, that she was at every tribal council, and people voted for her. Now, I mean, look, she was also the best choice of those three, but it's not always a story of, I took control of this game, I controlled every vote. Sandra was able to win a vote against Parvati because she was able to say, I tried to help you guys, but you didn't. This is not a game that is, a jury sits there and is like, oh yeah, you were the guy that did this and you deserve to win. It's always about connecting on the jury in a way that makes them feel good about their vote. And here's the final thing. Are we confident that Tyson is going to have a great final jury performance?
See, I think Tyson would actually fare pretty well in a jury situation. But, I don't know, maybe that's just my preconceived biases about Tyson.
Well, let's remind you about your earlier preconceived biases against Tyson, which was Tyson's the kind of guy who could never win this game. Tyson isn't very good at coddling people. Fully admit he's gotten much better in both of those areas. But it's not inconceivable that he might come off as a little snide in the front of a final jury. Especially in the face of people saying, I want you to apologize for betraying me.
I don't think that's happening this year, though. I think we're kind of past those stages. I mean, there's still one or two slip through the cracks every now and then, but for the most part, you don't get those. Although that is my all-time favorite jury question. My question is, apologize!
But yeah, I think 4 jury votes in that scenario are in play for Sierra, largely depending on, again, what happens between now and then. And then all that needs to happen is Jervis gets one of those other 4, Tyson gets 3, 4-3-1, Sierra wins. And I think you probably stop doing this podcast with me.
I probably would, especially if she beat Tyson at the end by a narrow margin.
We might not even do the final episode. It'd just be like...
I'd demand a recount and start kicking things.
So you need to start mentally preparing yourself, emotionally.
Oh, no, I don't, Andy. We'll get to the predictions later, but I'll explain to you why I don't have to prepare for that scenario.
So whether we think that she has a legit chance to win or not, do you think this was the right move, voting out her mom?
It was the safest move. Although, to her credit, because some people have said to her, oh, why didn't you at least try to save your mom? She pointed out on Twitter, I did try to save my mom. It didn't make the final cut of the episode, but I tried to get, I think she said Caleb and Hayden to vote with her and her mom to take out, I think Tyson was who their target was. And Caleb and Hayden wouldn't go along with it. So she basically, at some point, had to realize, I can't get the numbers in my favor here.
Yeah, I mean, and we also saw her, doing some work to try and make it about Katie, which is the other reason why I think she's now a real legit threat to win. If all we saw tonight was just her being willing to vote out her mom and that conversation with her mom, it would be easy to write that out as the producers just finally getting something out of this theme. They were going to show that no matter if Sierra goes home next week. But they also showed her doing other things that weren't directly related to that drama. The way she was able to get Katie to admit that she doesn't have an idol, which is enough of an editing thing that suggests that maybe they are now starting to establish her character because she is a contender for victory.
And can we talk about how she gets Katie to admit that she doesn't have the idol? Because that was amazing to me.
How so?
So Katie is sitting there with her. Remember, Katie has been followed around through the woods by Laura M., who is Sierra's mother. And Sierra says, you don't have the idol, I have it. Nothing runs through Katie's head that says, if you have it, why is your mom chasing me around so I don't find the idol? Because you would have to assume that if Sierra has the idol, maybe her mom knows this.
No, that's how sneaky Sierra is. She doesn't even tell her mom. Yeah, Sierra got lucky there. She really should have just said, "Oh no, I know Tyson has the idol," or something like that.
Right, yeah, pulling it. I mean, she sort of tried to hedge by saying that it was her and Caleb found it. So maybe she could, if she was asked about, show it to me, she could say, no, it's Caleb's, I can't show it to you.
Well, she said she did that when she was rediscussing the plan with Tyson. We didn't see her do that when she was actually talking to Katie.
Oh, you're right.
Obviously, it could have happened, but maybe she had a different story for the guys.
That's a good point. I mixed those two things up. You're right. That's right. She told the guys that she said that she and Caleb had it.
Yeah. And some people have been throwing shade on that. Like, why did she go back to Tyson? Now she's a target, which I think that's our next topic of discussion. But again, who knows if what people say on Twitter is true or is just their own hagiography. But basically she said she felt she had to tell them in case Katie came to the guys and was like, oh, if Sierra has an idol, you guys are in trouble.
Yeah, I don't think it was a bad move. I mean, I can see either side of that argument, but I don't think either side is so obvious as to not be justified.
Yeah, I mean, is she a target now? Maybe. But you know what? That's what happens once you start playing Survivor, I also think, though, that Tyson is probably very likely to go back to underestimating Sierra.
So I'll get into my prediction now. I can't restrain myself anymore. I loved this episode and the preview precisely because it's setting up the one thing that we've kind of been dancing around all year, which is Tyson is the best and Sierra is the worst. And I think next episode we're going to get to see it. Are you familiar with the theory of Chekhov's gun, Andy?
They show it in Act 1 and it has to go off in Act 3.
Exactly. The Chekhov's gun theory is basically that every part of an entertainment piece is in there for a reason. So if they've shown us that Tyson has the hidden immunity idol, and they have repeatedly shown us that he has told nobody that he has the hidden immunity idol, what is the most likely outcome with that hidden immunity idol, Andy?
I'd say there's two likely outcomes. The most likely outcome and the answer that you're looking for here is that he plays it to everybody's surprise.
Right. The opposite outcome would be that he's a James and he gets stuck with it and gets sent home with it. But I think it might happen next episode because it makes the most sense. Tyson should know that 5 and 7 are his only times that he should really even consider using that immunity idol that he has. At 6, the numbers just don't make sense to use it. 5 is the last time you can even use it. So basically, he's got 2 opportunities left to use it. I gotta think that next episode, I'm so confident about this, I almost want to fly up to Canada just to watch this episode with you and then go party with Rob Ford for a bit and then come home. Because what's going to happen is Sierra is going to scheme. She's going to go after Tyson. I think Tyson kind of caught wind that Sierra might be a player now. So Tyson's hopefully going to do the math in his head and realize, all right, there's 2 times I can use this. Why not do it now? If he doesn't win immunity, he could still win immunity. But if he doesn't, I think he's going to be smart enough to say, now would be a good time for them to try to take me out. I'm going to play this because they have no idea that I have it.
Yeah, no, I think he'll definitely have his feelers up. If he doesn't, then this is another epic Tyson blunder.
But you missed the coup de grace, Andy. Who's going to go home when this happens, Andy?
Well, obviously, you want to say Sierra.
I want to say Sierra because I've been wanting to say Sierra every week for weeks now. And I think this is finally how Sierra meets her end.
Here's the thing. I'm not sure the Survivor editors set up their narrative based on our loyalties and excitements of this podcast. I'm not sure Sierra has been built up as the Tyson foil of this season. That said, I'm not sure anybody has been. So,
well, we have said that there's been some difficulty in the editing booth this year. All the previews have been dead on. There's been no misdirection whatsoever. It's like they brought in the rookie.
Yep, another one last night.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of like, hey, tune in this week to see Tyson go home. And then Tyson goes home. It's been a little too on the nose. So I got to figure that that's even more a point in my favor because at some point, someone woke up in the editing booth and said, hey, rookie, here's how we do edits on the previews for this show.
Now you think they're rope-a-doping us, maybe?
Yeah, exactly. They gave you like 4 or 5 in a row where they're just showing you exactly what's going to happen. And then, bam, hit you with the Tyson hidden immunity idol.
See, I think it's actually very likely that Tyson plays the immunity idol correctly and does not go home, even though a threat rises against him. I just don't think Sierra would be his target. I think he already knows in his head that at some point he's going to have to take out one of those 2 guys. I think he probably finds them both more threatening than Sierra, even if she's out there, stirring up stuff, which I'm not sure is how it's going to go down next week. in the previews, it wasn't her that brought up the idea, it was Caleb. Now, obviously, that could be in response to something she said. I'm just going off the previews, which have been, as discussed, pretty accurate so far. So I could almost just see him targeting like Hayden or Caleb.
Yeah, and I have to say that just like Sierra had her mild case of competence last week, Caleb kind of had some at Tribal Council this week, too. I think they were discussing, Laura and Sierra as a pair, and Caleb played it perfectly. He was like, they're a pair, but they're fighting just as hard, and they both want to win, and they got this competitive spirit. So he kind of like brushed it off and didn't make it seem totally obvious that they were going to target Laura there. Thought that was a good social play by him.
Yeah, he also brought up the idea that, like, maybe we should just get rid of Katie. Maybe that would be the right thing. So, yeah, hey, Caleb talks. It's actually kind of just an interesting, maybe, kind of thing. Is I guess Laura M. was wearing Tyson's pants at Tribal Council.
That's the rumor on Twitter.
Yeah, she wanted some kind of validation that they weren't going to vote for her, and he's like, hey, you can wear my pants. Which, why? Why would you do that, Tyson? Now you don't have pants.
Yeah, because Tyson seems so concerned about modesty. Have you met Tyson before?
I know, but it's like, what does it matter if Laura knows she's going home? Why try to do that? All that is just what? Because it'll be more fun when she's blindsided?
Probably. Tyson's the type that would think that.
You mean Tyson, the guy that's a lead pipe cinch to get everybody's jury vote because they love him and they would never feel betrayed by him? That Tyson?
Listen, this is a different Tyson this season.
A Tyson that gives a woman his pants to make her feel secure right before he cuts her throat.
There is confessional Tyson this season, and there is Survivor playing Tyson this season, and they are two different beasts.
No, look, Tyson this year has been great. I'm not throwing any shade on him. I don't need to cut you down to make myself feel better because I have this episode.
You're a better man than I am.
So let's talk a little about Tribal Council. Laura just cannot stop blowing up her daughter's spot, can she?
This is why Sierra was saying, I need my mom to go. Because it's not just that having her mom around makes them a target because there's two of them. It's because Laura's just not great at the social game. And we covered it earlier, that Laura has been voted out, or people have attempted to vote her out. I think you actually figured out that she's been voted out in 2 of 5 tribal councils she's been in. Was that right?
Correct. And then, when you factor in day 1 where she was almost voted out, half the time that she was available for a vote, people seemed really willing to do it. In fact, I believe she now holds the records for most votes cast against her in a single season.
Yeah, she beat out Philip and Ozzy, and Ozzy got sent to Redemption Island twice.
Yeah, and so has she.
Right. So, good company there, Laura. But it just shows she doesn't have a good grasp of how to interact with people, at least in this game. I'm sure she's a wonderful person in real life, but as far as this game, I don't think anybody buys what she's selling, basically.
And I think it was just she was a bad match. I'm not going to say Laura Moret's a terrible player. I think she's probably, average. She was decent in Samoa until things turned against her, but she was in a power position. She was with a group of people that were more like her. It sounds like they were kind of more bonding over Christian things. In fact, it sounds like one dude was in her church. Anyway, this cast wasn't that, and she tried to form bonds. It sounds like she tried to form maybe even a women's alliance, but Monica and Tina were just like, no. And everything we've seen since then, from the very first time she was on Redemption Island, that's when I think the spark hit with Sierra. It's like, oh man, this bitch has got to go.
We'll use the beep button there.
Yeah.
So, speaking of Redemption Island, we actually had a voicemail this week about Redemption Island.
Hey, John and Andy, it's Emma. I was just calling to ask you guys a question that I heard brought up on another podcast, which is, what do you think about Redemption Island players not being at Tribal Council? Because all of them are going to end up either on the jury or, back in the game amongst other people who have been at all these tribal councils. So they won't have as much information. Just wondering your thoughts on that. Bye.
So I think the other podcast she's talking about is Rob Has a Podcast, because I listened to it, and absolutely, something I hadn't thought of, because on the long list of things that Redemption Island screws up, I forgot this one. But it's on the list. It's another flaw in Redemption Island, is that people who will vote on the final winner are missing the evidence that the show, for many seasons at least, told us was a part of them making their decision.
Right, that's why they always bring in the jury to the tribal councils, because it's supposed to be a big factor in their decision when they get to the end, because they're going to see the stages of gameplay along the way and see Probst grilling everybody so that they can find out all the information about the things that are happening that they're not around to see anymore.
So here's a question. Do you think it matters? Do you think juries actually see stuff at Redemption Island that changes their mind? Or are they all just kind of thinking about last time they were on the island and the people that betrayed them and the things that people are, talking about at the house?
I think it does matter a little bit because, obviously once they get over to the Ponderosa, there's a lot of socializing that goes along there. And there's going to be some people that'll try to sway votes different ways once they hit that Ponderosa setting. But I think it does factor in a little bit. For the people that vote based on how well they think people played the game rather than, bitterness or spite, those people do take into account what sort of things go down at tribal council and what things get said and who plays what idol and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I think it can matter. It might not matter, but it can. And I think probably the most obvious example, I almost don't want to bring it up because I think this also brought up in the podcast that Emma was talking about, was in South Pacific, where Sophie cried at a tribal council talking about the stress and the emotions of the game. And it seemed like a turning point for the jury, and obviously we're slaves to the edit here, but it kind of seemed like people just kind of noticed her. And she was able to reference that moment again in front of the final tribal council, that this wasn't just that she had no connections with people, this was, she was changing. And I think that helped.
Yeah, I would agree with that. There's a certain type of player, they're going to vote certain ways. It's only a certain type of voter, I should say, not even player. If you're basing your vote on how the game is played, then yes, you do care about seeing tribal council. And if you're on Redemption Island, you're not going to see that.
So who's the kind of player that's on this season that might want to base their vote on things that they see at tribal council?
Tell me.
Vetus.
Vetus does seem like the type.
And you know what? He's already missed one Redemption tribal council. So.
And hopefully we'll miss several more.
I suspect he'll miss a lot of them.
Yeah, Redemption Island has a whole lot of flaws, like you mentioned. Once again this week, we got the combined immunity plus reward challenge, which is the worst. I can't stand it, especially in a post-merge situation. We used to get these awesome reward challenges where you would set up pecking orders, you would cause dissension in the group, you would create drama, and now it's, hey Monica, congratulations on winning, here's some hamburgers. You got immunity and hamburgers.
So what do you think about her decision to not eat the hamburger?
I think absolutely nothing. I don't think it has any effect on the game either way.
Yeah, I don't think, suddenly people love Monica and this is going to help her. I also don't think that this is going to hurt her in the way that sometimes outward displays of generosity have. I think she sounded genuine enough that she wanted to do it, and people probably aren't that interested in voting her out right now anyway, so they were like, oh, hey, thanks for the burgers.
Yeah, I just think people aren't that interested in Monica either way, so I don't think it's going to have any impact. However, the reward challenges, as I mentioned, have been important in the past, and I'll segue right into another voicemail that we got about those reward challenges.
Hey guys, this is AV Clubber. Come on in here. Just want to say what a great job we're doing with the podcast. We talk about what Redemption Island does post-merge, and the biggest thing that it does is kill any sort of reward challenge. I'm wondering, because I've got this huge slew of about 15 to 10 seasons that I missed in the middle of the whole thing, when were times that after-merge reward challenges really made a huge difference? And do you think that sort of just throwing a reward like they did with Monica and the hamburgers and hot dogs can get the same sort of differences that and situations that you got with post-merge reward challenges that you saw in the past? So I'm curious about that, because Redemption Island obviously isn't going to go away, and I'm hoping that having it post-merge and losing those reward challenges, we won't lose some of this opportunity and situations. So I want to know about what the situations were in the past and whether or not this sort of throwing a reward with the immunity gives those situations the same sort of possibility. So thanks again, and love the podcast, and keep doing the good work. Bye.
All right, look at that. 2 voicemails. We're taking the voicemail world by storm. Is that a thing? But yeah, thanks for leaving the message. I will call you Come On In for short.
Way to save a syllable there.
That's right. Early in the season, probably in our preview podcast, we listed all the many reasons why Redemption Island doesn't work. And this is one of them. Because, yes, there has been instances in the past where there were social costs to the things that happen with rewards. And smart players would take that into consideration and either base the choices that the game makes you make on those things, or would make sure to avoid winning those challenges that set up these Sophie choices that get you in the way. And I mean Sophie's choice in the Meryl Streep sense, not in the South Pacific winner sense.
Oh, I thought you meant Sophie from South Pacific, right. Her choice.
Actually, she was probably the kind of player that probably knew not to win reward challenges. Although that was a Redemption Island season, so there probably wasn't any.
Right. So I have a good memory about this one. I remember Pearl Island's Fairplay, who I hate calling him that, but that's what people recognize him as. He and Burton thought they were running the show. They thought they were coasting right to the end as a final two. So they're so confident that they win reward. They go on reward together, leave 3 ladies back on the island, and it's Lil, Sandra, and sexy mortician Dara. And they're all laying on the beach, and Sandra says, "Hey guys, I've got an idea. Let's vote them out."
Yeah, and they were giving the editors so much, because Johnny Fairplay is Johnny Fairplay, like, ha 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 ha, those stupid girls, we're going to win so much. And just layering the irony on the irony on irony.
Oh, yeah. John and Burton out on that reward were just, like, living it up and laughing at how stupid their competition was. And then you see them back on the island, and they're scheming, and they're like, okay, so we're good then? Fairplay and Burton out? Great. And this is why I think people don't give Sandra enough credit, because she ran a decent part of that game in that season, and people just think of her as the under-the-radar type. She did do the whole, anybody but me strategy, but for a while there, she pulled some strings.
Yeah, and then she's done that a few times. She got Tawana to be voted out instead of her and to catch the flack for dumping the fish. She was able to get, Russell to vote out Coach. Like, that's an element of her game, and that's something that you can do under the radar. So, yeah, another big example, and I think these both kind of fit in one category. It's that the go away on a reward and leave the wrong people behind. And this is in Palau. So the big story of Palau is that Tom Westman was an unbeatable force. But he actually was available to be voted out once. He did not win immunity one time. And prior to that time, there was a reward challenge. And Greg with 2 Gs, Jen, R.I.P., and Katie went off in a reward because they were in a sub-alliance together, thinking that Ian was their fourth. And they were young, and they were having fun, and old Tom would understand. He's been winning everything. But they left Ian, Tom, and Karen, the lawyer, to talk about things, and Ian just didn't quite feel right. I think actually Ian was pissed that he wasn't chosen. So he talks to Tom that, hey, Greg's thinking about voting you out. And they came up with a counter plan that, no, let's vote out Greg instead. Let's not wait for this to happen. And what was really awesome about this, and this is one of my favorite episodes, is they seized control of the game by not being afraid of the purple rock.
Oh, what a nice transition into the mention of our podcast name. Good job, Andy.
Yeah, so they went out and actually said that we'll be willing to draw rocks. I would do that because taking control of the game right now is more important than the risk of random chance. And that's how you can break it. There's always one side of a potential tie that has more will. And they were the ones that had more will. And it was easy because Tom was like, I'm being threatened. Karen was on the bottom of the alliance. And then Ian ended up winning immunity, so he would have been safe anyway. Whereas the other side, Katie wasn't that solid and willing to put her own neck on the line in order to hang out with Greg and Jen, knowing that she could always just float back to Ian and Tom. So at the last minute before Tribal Council, Ian pulls Katie aside. He's like, actually, we're voting out Greg. And it was, a really great moment. So that's kind of one way to go about it. But there's also just not leaving the wrong people behind, but just choosing the wrong people, and people get pissed off because you didn't choose them. and they decided to vote you out. The most recent example in that case was Kat in One World. So as the edit showed, she again picked cool people to go hang out on a boat with, and she made fun statements about old people, and I don't want to do this with them. And everybody was mad at her for not letting Tarzan hang out with his wife, and I think Christina with her dad, who's been having health troubles. And she got voted out that night. Do you think that was actually the reason, or was that just a fabrication of editing?
I think that was a total coincidence. She was probably destined to go home at that point anyway. If she wasn't going home then, she would have been going home next. It wasn't like Kat was bound for Final 3 before that big screw-up.
See, I think there's probably a little bit to it. Like, she went home ahead of Tarzan and Christina, for instance. So, now you could argue that because she was a bigger threat, but I think you saw that Kim, when they came back and everybody told Kim that was what was happening, because I remember Chelsea being pissed off about it, Kim kind of fought for it a bit, like, oh, really? But then realized that that's kind of the mood in camp, and that she was going to let the camp have this one, because she didn't want to assert her dominance too hard, because she was awesome at, getting her way without doing that. So I think that's actually a good example of playing the reward wrong. But I'm not sure there was a way she could have played it better. It's just one of those things where don't win the reward.
Yeah, but speaking of Kim's awesomeness, though, that transitions pretty well into the one topic that I wanted to get to before we wrap this thing up. Survivor Hall of Fame voting is going on right now. And basically the rules are this. You get 3 nominations. I think can you do it every day until the end of the month? Is that what the deal is?
I don't know. I actually haven't looked it up. I did find that you already took our vote, so hopefully we get more than one.
I believe you can do it daily. The only stipulation is that you cannot vote from someone in this current season, which breaks my heart.
I know, you really want to vote for Rupert, but you can't, man. You can't.
My actual vote was Sierra, of course, but now that my heart is broken and I cannot do that.
But yes, no Tyson, no Rupert, no Tina.
Right. I'll have to wait for the future Sierra versus Laura M season to do that. So, anyway, fun bit before we give our own picks. Probst gave his. Andy, are you sitting down for this?
I only stand for our podcast. That's how I get my energy going.
Probst picks, and again, 3 picks. Cochran, Malcolm, and Coach.
God, that's so Probst. Actually, for people that aren't that might not know, maybe we should give them who's actually in the Hall of Fame currently, so they can at least judge Probst on that level.
Yeah, let's give a breakdown of who's currently in there, just so you know what talent pool they're competing against here.
All right, so they've done 3 Hall of Fames voting. This is something that was kicked off by, it's not actually officially like something by CBS or Mark Burnett. It's kind of an unofficial Hall of Fame that has enough endorsement that Jeff Probst is a voter for it. It's by Xfinity TV, their website, and Gordon Holmes, who is kind of one of the big figures in Survivor journalism. So the initial inductees class, they had 5. And it was Parvati Shallow, Boston Rob, Russell Hantz, Richard Hatch, and Sandra. Then, from this point on, they're inducting 3 a year. So the next class had Cirie, Ozzy, and Tom. And that's actually when they instituted the rule that you can't vote for somebody this season, because Ozzy was voted in during South Pacific. So it's kind of the Ozzy rule. And then last year they inducted Amanda Kimmel, Ethan Zahn, and Rob Cesternino. So that's who Probst couldn't have voted for, if you're wondering why it wasn't just Boston Rob, Boston Rob, Boston Rob.
Are you surprised that there was a certain someone who didn't make this list? Actually, I was initially surprised, and then I remembered hearing the rumors that I had heard about the dissolution of that man crush.
So we're talking about Colby, right?
Yes, of course we are. Donaldson.
Yeah, and I bet he's voted for him in the past. You have to look at his older votes. But yeah, I'm surprised he didn't just keep going on Colby. And as an aside, I actually had Colby on my short list, and I'll get into that.
I did as well. I think actually Probst, when he wrote his previous ballots with Colby on them, they were just hearts circled in a little notebook with Colby's name written inside.
It might have just been CD plus JP.
Oh, that could have been it.
Okay, so let's talk about this. Cochran, I'm guessing you don't have a big problem with that one.
Spoiler alert, Cochran made my ballot as well.
Yeah, I'm not all that surprised. Malcolm. We love Malcolm.
I do love Malcolm.
But come on.
And that's the thing, is I feel like Malcolm is kind of like, and this is going to lose a whole bunch of people who are not sports fans, but it's like voting Blake Griffin for the Hall of Fame. Blake Griffin is a very fun basketball player. I enjoy watching him. He does lots of great, exciting things. He's not an amazing Hall of Fame player.
Not yet, anyway. Like, we all know Malcolm's going to be back on Survivor. You'll have your chances, Probst.
They wanted him on this season. He's going to be on as often as they can get him until he just, like, dies of starvation on an island somewhere.
Yeah, so let's calm down on Malcolm, all right? And then Coach. What do you think of Coach?
I have no idea what motivated this Coach pick. I actually read Probst's justification of this, and it was basically, oh, Coach is a funny guy, and, you know, he's really popular because he really believes everything that he says, and he always gives it his best. I'm like, that could apply to so many other people on this show. Why Coach?
Yeah, I mean, look, obviously Coach's role has always been, and why he's been cast before, and could be cast again. He is a character. And there's no qualifications for this Hall of Fame, I guess, but there's only 11 people in. Coach is your 14, really? Really, Probst? What do all these three people have in common, by the way?
I'm thinking. Oh, right, they're all dudes.
Yeah, what a shock, huh?
Yeah.
I wonder if Probst has ever voted for a female. And honestly, probably. He probably voted for Parvati and Amanda, I bet.
Oh, yeah, I could see him voting for Amanda, maybe. I don't think Siri or Sandra were picks of his.
So you know what? Let's talk about the people that are in there right now. Because this kind of gets into my feeling about this whole Hall of Fame anyway. I mean, look, it's the unofficial official one. I think it's kind of silly.
Right, of course. Because obviously it would just be all the season winners if you're just going to go by who's the best players. All right, yes, they won the season, so they must be good. That's not fun.
No, I mean, yeah, there are some winners that the person who thinks everybody who wins deserve to win, would never put in a Hall of Fame. But you have 5 people to put in to start, and Russell Hantz is one of them.
I can maybe see a justification for that. Maybe. I mean, it's still a stretch, but if you're factoring in entertainment value and then also how far they got in the game, what sort of impact they had on the game, they had to change how they handled immunity idols because of Russell. And then they changed it back because they realized, no, it was exciting what Russell did. And so they basically let Malcolm do the exact same thing.
Yeah, I have no problem with him being in the 11. I don't think he's one of the 10 greatest players, but this isn't just about great players.
Exactly.
But the first 5, the inaugural class... But, you know, he's not the player I have the biggest trouble with. Who do you have the biggest trouble with?
Well, on the one hand, Rob C. was only out there for 1 season, but I think he kind of got...
Well, he came back in All-Stars, actually. You might forget this.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, he was out there for 1 season and 2 episodes.
3.
But I know, I kid. But Rob C., that one I think is not just based on his gameplay, but also on what he's done for the show. So I'm fine with that. I have some minor qualms about Ozzy.
Ozzy's the guy for me.
Ozzy, he's such a one-dimensional player, but I get, though, I can at least, there's some justification for that. I'm not going to get too upset about him being in there.
Here's my thing. Ozzy's the sore thumb. Obviously, they changed the rules to kind of prevent that. I'm not going to say Ozzy could never be in there. He's obviously one of the legends of the game, and for people who really value challenge prowess, you know, he's one of the favorites. But that he's in, and at least one of the people I'm going to mention tonight isn't, puts this whole operation into, you know, question.
Yeah, and that makes me think that I know who your vote goes to in this scenario.
So let's get right into it. My first choice is Yul Kwon.
I knew that's where you were going with this.
That he's not in there, and yeah, Ozzy Lusk, Amanda Kimmel, Rob Cesternino, even I'm going to even say Russell Hantz. It just shows how much of this is a popularity contest, because every single one of these people that are in here have been on the show more than once.
Right. I think part of that, though, is that I don't think Yul has shown a lot of interest in coming back from what I've heard. I think at some point he probably will. But I think for a while he was trying to distance himself from the Survivor thing. He wasn't all into the Survivor scene, if you will. Mm-hmm. So I think that probably hurt him.
No, I think that's 100% without a doubt. That's what hurt him. Yule has a life, and he's kind of moved on, and so people just have forgotten him. He's not servicing his fame in the way that these people are. But come on, like, people who are voting for this should be able to look past it. And maybe, Jeff Probst isn't going to be able to look past it, because honestly, I don't think he thinks that highly of. But, like, I've looked at Gordon Holmes' picks in the past, and they're pretty soft. And others, it's like, how do you not recognize what Yule did? That was one of the best performances this show has ever seen. He's a winner. He beat Ozzy. Why is he not in here? And I'm not sure he's going to get in this time if I've been looking at the voting.
You know what's funny is we actually discussed this in an earlier episode, but they've brought back so many people from that season, and Yule beat all of them.
Yeah. 4 people from that season have come back 3 times each. Yeah, and look, I think they've asked Yule. Like, the fact that Yule hasn't been on the show has been Yule's decision, but that shouldn't be keeping us from voting for him for the Hall of Fame.
Right.
If this Hall of Fame means anything.
Exactly, and I totally support your Yule pick. He didn't make my final 3 ballot. It was tough to narrow it down to 3.
I kind of think that they induct too many people at once. If we think this is going to be an ongoing thing, we're going to be at 20 pretty quickly.
And that's fine. I mean, you'll be at 20 people after 30 seasons of the show. I think that's a decent amount.
Yeah, that's fair enough. But, once we start voting, Aris, then we need to look at her. So, who's your number 1 pick?
All right. See, I imagine that mine's going to end up on your list. I'll skip around on my list, but I'll put Cochran there.
Yeah, so I considered Cochran. I have no problem with Cochran. Obviously, I'm going to let you talk about your pick. He's not on my list just because I feel it's too soon.
There's not much to say about it. Actually, Probst made a fairly decent argument for him. I have to say, he's fairly eloquent. He basically said, when they started this show, they wanted it to be a type of show that anybody could win, and Cochran's win kind of proved that it was, you don't have to be some athletic force, you don't have to be an outdoorsman, you don't have to be some scheming, charming mastermind, which I think Cochran kind of is that. It's just not as over the top as some other players might be. But you look at Cochran and you don't think that guy seems like he could win Survivor. And I think that's what endeared him to Probst and endeared him to a lot of us, too.
Yeah, no, look, he's a grade A character. And that's obviously important because this is a television show. He completely dominated the season that he played. From an editing standpoint, anyway, I think, people have overrated his win just a bit.
I don't think he was necessarily overrated in his win. I think that he got a lot of airtime, yes, but I think that's because he was one of the more entertaining people on that season. And I don't know how you based your picks for this season and for this ballot, but mine were based on, how well they did in the game, how entertaining they were to me as a viewer, and then how far they got in the game. I mean, there was some entertaining players that went out fairly early, and Cochran probably would have fallen into that category in his first go-round, but his second time, even his first time around, he played well. There was just only so much he could do with Ozzy on his tribe. But, in his second go-round, he was great. He was entertaining. He ran the show from behind the scenes, gave us some good confessionals.
Won some immunities.
Yeah, he actually won 2 immunities. That's a Hall of Fame performance to me.
Yeah, I have no issue with it. When picking, and as you said, you can only pick 3. I just had a self-imposed rule that it was just too soon. I'll induct him next year or something like that. I don't think there's going to be a mandatory 5 years, but it's just like, I think there's some other people that have been waiting longer, I guess.
Okay, well, let's get your next one, because I think you're going to have one of mine on your list, and we'll see if this is it.
All right, so there's actually going to be a theme to all 3 of my picks.
Is it that they're all men?
Kim Spradlin.
That's exactly who I thought it would be.
Yeah, we'll shout it from the mountaintops. She played one of the greatest games, if not the greatest single-season game in the history of the show. She did everything that you're supposed to do to win this game, to the point where it kind of made her season a little dull, because there was basically nothing anybody could do. Anytime somebody started something, she sniffed it out, she talked them down, and she got people on her side. It was phenomenal, and she should be here.
So Kim was also on my list, and Kim, this is what I don't get for people who don't give Kim credit. She played the exact same game and at the exact same level as Boston Rob in his coronation season. I don't even remember what it was called because all I call it is the Boston Rob Victory Parade, since it was so obvious from about episode 2 that he was winning that one. But Kim dominated the whole season. She eliminated all the threats, and yes, it kind of took some of the excitement out of the show because no one ever went after her, but she was a mastermind. She played beautifully.
She won many challenges, and here's actually something that she didn't have to do that Boston Rob did. She took 2 worthy competitors to the final.
Right, and that's the thing is everybody complains, oh, she played with a bunch of dumb people. A, Boston Rob did too. B, she made them look dumb because of what she did. If anyone showed an inkling that they had some brain cells rubbing together, she took them out.
Yeah, I think the argument that always Boston Rob and her played against dumb people was a little overblown. I mean, Boston Rob played against David the Lawyer, and Russell was over there, and there's a few others. It's when you play against a truly superior opponent, you're going to look bad. When the Phoenix Suns play the Miami Heat, Phoenix Suns look like they are not professional basketball players. It's just, that's kind of how it went.
And I know that you've said in the past that Kim is now the hipster pick, so are you wearing your skinny jeans and your Warby Parker glasses as you make that pick?
Well, the hipster jeans probably don't fit, but yeah, I have a band t-shirt on.
Nice.
But yeah, so that's my second pick, and your second pick as well?
It was.
I've been leading it off. I'll let you get to third.
I think we're going to differ on this final pick.
I guarantee it.
I wavered back and forth on this because there was a lot of worthy people. I was basically locked into Cochran and Kim, but I went back and forth on this last one a while, and I ended up at JT.
All right. JT is on my considerations list, but he is not my vote.
Yeah, JT, and again, it was tough, but it basically came down to JT dominated his season almost as thoroughly as anybody else on this list did, and did so from a minority position. Went into the merge down big, and not only did he make it to the final 2, brought along Fishback, which he didn't have to do. He could have brought along an easier opponent, and still won unanimously, and won Player of the Season, the little sprint award that they always do.
Yeah, no, basically the theme, and I'm semi-spoiling my third pick, of my votes are people who played amazing single-game seasons. Now, obviously, JT doesn't completely fit because he's come back, and maybe that's what's taken a little bit of the shine off of him.
Yeah, I will say that his return performance was maybe not as stellar.
Yeah, I'm not going to sell him out completely. He was in a terrible position by then, so I appreciated him trying to throw the Hail Mary pass. It was just really poorly executed.
Yeah, it seems really dumb in hindsight, and it kind of seemed really dumb at the time. But, I mean, it's not quite as dumb as everybody gives it credit for being, just because they did have to take a risk there, and that was an awfully big risk, and it certainly did backfire. But, yeah, there was, I mean, if what they had perceived had been correct and Russell was the only guy and needed their help, then that would have paid off beautifully, and JT would have been seen as some kind of genius.
Yeah, and even earlier in Heroes vs. Villains, he was at least smart enough to make the right play to go with Colby and Tom for at least one vote to try and, stem the tide of them constantly losing. So, yeah, I think he isn't, the complete failure that some people have thought since then. But I kind of feel like we need to see JT one more time before I give him my vote. And I kind of feel like we will see JT one more time. So
we probably will.
So my pick to round out my 3 unified choices of single-player, single-season dominance is Brian Heidick again.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I know. Never happened.
Yeah, I was going to say, spoiler alert, he's not making it in.
Well, I mean, look, it's a fan voting thing, although I think that's only half of it. But at the same time, I doubt Brian Heidick has a lot of fans.
If Michael Vick is in the voting, maybe he's getting in. If Michael Vick is one of the chief ballots.
So this is how seriously I took this fake voting discussion. I actually listened to a recent interview with Brian Heidick done by the Survivor Oz podcast. Because I was like, nobody's heard from that dude in like 12 years. I'm kind of interested. So he had some explanations for those things.
Did he talk about his... Okay, so... some people who are listening might not know the Heidick story.
Yeah, let me educate, because, Brian Heidick is one of those forgotten players, and in many instances I think this is because they have actively tried to forget him. He won Survivor Thailand, the 5th season of the show. And he did so in completely dominant fashion. He was the only contender. He directed all the votes. Everybody, trusted in him. He won the immunities he had to. He was the villain who won. He basically took Richard Hatch's game and was able to adapt it to a world where people were looking for the Richard Hatch game. And honestly, a lot of things you saw from Boston Rob later, both in All-Stars and in Redemption Island, was a play of Brian Heidik. But he wasn't the nicest man in the world.
Yeah, let's talk about some off-screen activities.
So I guess prior to being on Survivor, what he was cast for is he was a used car salesman. And he kind of gave off that vibe. Turns out that he had done some acting, some commercials, and some things that they like to classify as softcore porn. In his interview, he suggested that it was all stimulated stuff, and if it had a better budget, it would just be rated R. But whatever. The big thing that, if people know about him and nobody wants to talk to him about, and why we talk about Michael Vick, is he was accused of shooting a puppy to death.
Which makes him a horrible human being, because I love dogs.
Yeah, I'm a big dog guy. So his explanation for that was it was with his ex-wife. Lots of, she was very eager to get the story out there, and that it didn't quite go down the way she has said.
So did he actually talk about this on the Survivor Oz thing?
He actually did. The question was posed to him, and he put it out there that he was not trying to shoot the dog. It was basically a hunting accident.
He was trying to shoot the wife or the ex-wife,
like
and
that.
He missed?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Well, then it's understandable then.
I don't care either way. And also in that interview, it suggested that he was asked to come back for All-Stars.
Really?
But he demanded a fee.
I think they generally all do get a fee at this point. Was that not happening in All-Stars?
Sounded like they didn't want to pay Brian Heidik a fee. So that's what happened there. And then there's been no contact ever since. No, I mean, if we're just talking, and there's no stats or anything like that, but if we're recognizing the best performances, which is obviously the kind of person that I am, if you've been listening to this podcast at all, Brian Heidik gave one of at least the top 10 best performances in the history of the show. I might say top 5. So he gets my vote.
Yeah, we're going a little long here, but I'm still curious about this. So he demanded a fee, which again is something that I've heard returning players get. I guess it's possible, because All-Stars was fairly early on in the show's run. Maybe they weren't doing that at that point.
Yeah, this is kind of what the interviewer was starting to get at, and I mean, Brian didn't have any answers for that because he maintained no contact with the show. They recently had the big reunion where they brought like as many people back as they could for like this gala event in New York, and he was the only person from Thailand that didn't show. I think maybe they didn't for All-Stars because the fame was still so big then that people were like, yeah, I'm an All-Star, I'm in Survivor. Whereas now they need them more. They need them more now than they did then, I guess is kind of the thought.
Right, and that's sort of what I was going to get to, is that I think the most likely scenario is that they didn't get that fee, the appearance fee for All-Stars, which helps explain why some of them were so bitter on that season, because they were really competing hard for the actual money, whereas now they're guaranteed a certain level of money to come back, so it's not quite as big of a hit if you get voted out.
Yeah. We talked about Colby earlier, and I said that I considered him, and you said you kind of did as well. Well, why?
At Colby, it was kind of one of those things that, again, because I'm basing mine on both entertainment and how well they did at the game. Colby, he's obviously gone a whole lot of days in this game, and basically every time he's come out, he's, despite diminishing challenge returns, he's done fairly well. I mean, he's never one of the ones that goes home early. He definitely made the wrong move in taking Tina to the end of Australia. But other than that, he played a solid game that season. He is a challenge beast, but I think he's got a little bit more strategy in him than Ozzy does.
Yeah, I think also Colby is one of the central figures in early Survivor, back when this show was super popular. Like, this show was built on people like Colby Donaldson.
And let's not forget that he is the original Probst man crush.
Yeah, so if you're just kind of like a builder category, kind of contributor to the success of Survivor, absolutely Colby Donaldson's in there. I almost just put him as third just so it wasn't all winners, because I don't think it just has to be winners. Suri, I would have voted for probably in the original class. I have no problem with, well, I shouldn't say I have no problem, but I'm okay with Amanda and Rob being in there. Same with Russell. So, yeah, I think Colby's under consideration. The other one I wanted to talk about just briefly, because it's out there and it kind of transitions to another discussion. There's a lot of votes going right now for Todd Herzog.
No, I will say that I think I've rewatched China more recently than you have. Well, watched, period. I watched it for the first time fairly recently. I wasn't that impressed. He had an okay game. It was reined in by Amanda. He certainly could have had a lot more things backfire on him. He just sort of lucked out, and they didn't. Although luck is part of the game, I just don't think that he was so in control of the game. He had a pretty good final jury performance, but he was also competing against Amanda and Courtney, and they were not necessarily the strongest final three to go against, or two of the final three to go against. So he won that season. He was an okay winner. I don't give him a ton of credit for that season, though.
Yeah, I think he's a middle-of-the-pack winner. I could see, once we get to 2025, I think the reason that there's a groundswell of support for Todd Herzog is because of what's happening in his personal life right now. I don't watch the show or anything, but he was recently on Dr. Phil, and it sounds like he has a case of alcoholism that's gotten to the point where it's threatening his life. So I get the instinct of wanting to, show some support and love for Todd, but, how about we wait till he gets out of rehab at least?
Right.
Yeah.
And this is sort of the same thing that happened with the
with Ethan.
Brenda sympathy. No, I was thinking the Brenda sympathy votes last year for the fan favorite. It was so clearly Malcolm, and then suddenly Brenda has one emotional moment, and it's, Brenda is the fan favorite. It's the recency bias thing coming in.
Yeah, I also think that's why Ethan's in the top 11. He's a fine enough winner. He was the third winner, but his fight with cancer has been good on him. So, and why not? But yeah, not Todd right now. Wish him the best of luck. It's a really sad story, but I don't know if he even needs this right now.
I actually almost picked Courtney, who was also from his season, as my third. She was one of my alternates.
Well, you can make the argument that Courtney had a better final jury performance than Todd did, because she probably went in getting no votes, and she ended up getting, 3?
Was it 3 or 2? I can't remember, but she did a lot better than I thought she would.
More than Amanda is what she got.
That's a pretty low bar.
So, you know what we didn't do?
What did we not do?
We didn't actually lock in our predictions. We talked around what we think is going to happen, but you think Sierra's going home next week?
Oh, I'm laying it out. Okay, so Tyson plays the idol. Sierra is voted out.
All right. So I'm really torn because, yes, the previews actually have been dead on, and we've been talking for weeks. It's like, Tyson might not be making the right move here because now he's the biggest threat.
You have to stick to your Tyson boot prediction. Come on.
Oh, is that what we're doing?
Be a man.
Well, here's the other thing. I think he just wins immunity. They build this whole thing up, and all that discussion, like who's going to go home. Is it going to be Tyson? Is it going to be Tyson? We should take out Tyson next. And then he just wins immunity, and then they just vote out Monica.
That would be fun. I'm fine with that, too.
So that's my prediction, is that they're all ready to vote out Tyson, and maybe Tyson even starts to kind of get a bit of an inkling, but then he just wins immunity, and then everybody just punts the decision and gets rid of Monica instead.
Well, then you're almost guaranteeing Tyson a spot in at least the Final Four, because he's going to play that idol once he gets to Final Five.
Yes, I'd be surprised if Tyson doesn't go far in this game.
Nice.
The show would have done a very poor job if Tyson suddenly disappears next week.
That'll teach you to betray my Tyson man love.
And speaking of next week, I hear you guys have a bit of a holiday.
Yeah, I think there's something about natives or something. I don't remember. It's something gave us blankets and maize.
And you gave them dysentery and the flu.
Right.
So yeah, they're still having an episode of Survivor next week, even though the big Thanksgiving holiday is the next day. So we're not 100% sure what we're going to do, but we're 99% sure there's going to be a show. So tune in next week while you have your turkey hangover, which I'm just going to assume is still there when we finally get the show posted Saturday or Sunday. And you'll get to listen to us talk about Sierra not going home.
Yeah, you can listen to us on, not your Black Friday shopping, because let's not get too ambitious on when we post this. But it'll probably be if you're still maybe Black Sunday shopping, maybe then you could listen to it.
That's racist.
White Sunday shopping?
And if you want to know when that podcast is being posted, make sure you follow us on every platform on the internet. You can follow us on Twitter.
Rattle them all off.
Twitter, Purple Rock Pod. WordPress, purplerockpodcast.wordpress.com. Gmail, purplerockpodcast@gmail.com. purplerock.tumblr.com. Oh no, purplerockpodcast.tumblr.com.
Oh. purplerock.tumblr.com is just hardcore porn. You don't want to go there. Or maybe you do want to go there.
I think it's a Deep Purple fan site.
Oh.
The Purple Rock. And if you'd like to leave us a voicemail like our two lovely friends did this week, how can they do that?
They can send a Skype voicemail to me. I have a Skype account that's set up to go straight to voicemail because I don't want to talk to any of you people. It's JR Purple Rock. Leave us a message. It's set up all hours of the day, and clearly it works because we're getting voicemails from you people, and we love doing so. So, especially if you have a strange and endearing accent, give us a call.
Yeah, so while we may not want to talk to you, we certainly want to hear from you. Get in on that because there's a good chance that if my prediction is right, we're not going to have anything to talk about next week other than our turkey hangovers.
Yeah, and at some point soon, we're going to try to get us another AV Club guest. I've actually got someone lined up. It's just a matter of doing some scheduling now. So if you're an AV Clubber and that's why you listen to us, stay tuned. We'll have a guest coming soon. Maybe not Thanksgiving because that's a tough get, but soon.
All right, and since you're not going to hear from us until then, we wish you happy and safe holidays, and thanks for listening to The Purple Rock.
And happy whatever thing you do in Canada on Thanksgiving.
It's called Go to Work.
Happy Work Day.